without further ado, here's your host, L.Nathan Hare.
All right, here we go. Living now, living right now. This is L.Nathan Hare, your host here for this next hour at WFO Power 96.5 FM on your dial. Our principal sponsor, of course, the Community Action Organization of Western New York, still fighting the war on poverty, now in our 53rd year. I want to welcome all of you again to this hour of insight, introspection, and interpretation of facts, events, and trends affecting you right here and right now in Buffalo and the Western New York community, and in fact, connecting you to communities all across the country. Each week, we focus on things we think will be of interest to you, which will serve to motivate you and serve to connect you to the broader issues that affect our communities here in Western New York. Now, today's program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. I hope that you will. Our number here again is 881, that's my office number, 837-1112. That's 837-1112. Let me get that number again. It's 837-1112, 837-1112. I want to build today's discussion on the premise that we began last week as we were talking about this parent movement that's being led by Neil Dobbins, by my son Kenny Simmons, and the Stop the Violence organization, the help me out with the different organizations, the peacekeepers, and so on. Y'all know I'm getting old, so my brain gets stuck every now and then. But we have a wide array of organizations and churches that are starting to become a part of this initiative, with the idea that the most valuable factor in changing the dynamic of what is happening with our young people is the parents of these young people. We have to find a way to motivate these parents to advocate with those in power who are in positions of capability to do those things that will help us to change the trajectory of how our children are being raised. I'm here with Emmanuel Radford, who is doing the live streaming of the program. If you have access to a computer, if you have a handheld device, your Kindle, your laptop, whatever you call these various things, iPad, and so on, you can actually get on the internet, you can type in Facebook, and then type in Living Now, and the program will come up, and you can participate on the program. You can send in your comments, your observations, your questions, and we will try to respond to them on the air as best as we can. I want to take my initial thesis from an article written by the After School Alliance called After School Programs Keeping Kids and Communities Safe. And this is going to become the basic thesis that I want to try to work out. As we are rallying people, I think this past Thursday there were more than 200 people, parents that came to a rally at Elam Christian Fellowship. They actually held the rally, I believe, outside because there were so many people, that had come. And as the model that's being put forward is to try to get parents to become very vocal and supportive of efforts to keep their children safe, to keep their children in structure, to help their children avoid becoming victims of street violence, to help our children have a life structure that supports their positive direction in life, so that when they get to be 22, 25 years old, they're aligned. They've got high school diplomas, they've got associate's degrees, they've got, certifications, they've got bachelor's degrees, and they're able to put themselves in a position where they have a reasonable quality of life. Now, we can't promise everybody they're going to be a millionaire, but we can help everybody get to, I know, I see Emmanuel said, man, I didn't know that. I thought I could be a millionaire. That might not happen. It could happen, but it might not happen, right? But you can make $35,000, $40,000 a year your first year after finishing up your post-secondary training. That can routinely happen. Even if you're making $25,000 a year, you can take care of your cable bill, you can pay your rent, you can pay for food, and so on. So we need to put everybody in the best position in their lives that we can possibly get them in. That's going to require a collective effort. The ideation that keeps being talked about in the media by these various political pundits that seem to that seem to suggest that it's the parents' responsibility, to do thus and so for their children. Well, that may be, but the reality is those parents who can do are doing, and those parents who are not doing either can't do it or won't do it. You can't say to the entire population of kids, we're not going to help you because your parent doesn't know how to help you. We're not going to help you because your parent, doesn't seem to want to do the things that are necessary to help you structure to erect your life. We as a society have a society-wide interest in ensuring that every child gets from being born to a first rung on the economic ladder of this country so that they can take themselves, up the second and third rungs on that ladder on their own. That has to be we have to understand that that's in our collective self-interest. If it's in our collective self-interest, then we have to do collective things in order to make that come about. Before I get so far into the After School Alliance report, let me just pick up another thought. Mayor Mike Fahey from mayor of Omaha, Nebraska, he was quoted in an article saying that in today's world, where both parents often work, children are most likely to commit crimes or be victimized by crime after school or before parents return home from work. That is the fundamental reality. The children did not create the world that we live in now that says that both parents have to work. And if there's one parent, you're in real trouble because you only got one income coming into the household, right? And so the children didn't create that reality. The adults created that reality. We have made it so expensive to live in this world that you really can't structure a one-parent household most often, a working household most often. Even if you have both parents in the household, you probably need to have both parents working in order to be able to get into a home that's a good quality home, in order to have quality opportunities for food, clothing, shelter, education, travel, entertainment, etc., clothing and whatnot for your children. So as we talk about did we have a comment? Okay. So as we talk about the scale on the youth violence problem that we've been talking about the past few weeks, right? We've seen all of these shootings that have taken place recently. It seems like every week, the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen 1 or 2 people killed in the city of Buffalo as a result of shootings. And so as we talk about that and try to put a scale on that, what's the size of the problem that we actually have? There's a note of perspective that we need to consider as we start thinking about the crime rate. Because sometimes, you get so focused on the particular, you don't really see what the general actually is. And so you start focusing on something that really isn't the problem. If you want to solve your problem, you got to accurately identify what your problem is. You can put your resources on that problem. You don't want to put your resources like somewhere along the rainbow. You want to put your resources where the problem actually is. Well, not everyone who is arrested has committed the crime for which that person was arrested. That's number one. Number two, nor should statistics be confused with the number of crimes committed, because in some cases, the arrest of one person may account for a series of crimes. In other words, one person may have committed 35, robberies. So if you get rid of him, you get rid of 35 robberies, right? That's ugly, but you wouldn't say that there were 35 different crimes. It's really one criminal committing the same crime on a bunch of people. Kind of like the people that, get their hands on your credit card and seduce you into not turning down something that they offer you, on your credit card bill. Sometimes they have these things that are in the bill, and they say, here's this great thing, for you, and it's yours, but you have to tell us that you don't want it. So if you don't tell them that you don't want it, the next time you get a bill, you've been billed, for that thing, right? And they've done that to millions of people. Of course, we don't call that, crime. That's called white collar crime. That's okay crime, right? So if I rob you face to face and take, $20 from you, I'm a dirtbag, low life person and whatnot. But if I rob you through the computer, through your telephone bill, or through your credit card bill, well, that's white collar crime, that sort of thing occurs. It's oops, and so on, right? But I digress. um, in other cases, several people may be arrested for one crime, which is more often the case with juvenile crime. Juvenile crime, usually it's multiple juveniles come together to commit a particular crime. It's not usually one juvenile by herself or himself that commits that crime. In a report in the Alliance, the After School Alliance article that I'm referring to, they analyzed a random sample of juvenile offenders in Philadelphia. They found that the number of crimes accounted for by juveniles would be reduced by approximately 40% if you adjusted for the fact that in many of the cases where you have all of these juveniles that get arrested for a crime, the number of crimes they're being arrested for is really 60% of the number of juveniles that get arrested. That makes a lot of difference, right? I mean, your perspective on what you're dealing with becomes a little bit different. The scale of the problem that you're looking at becomes a little bit different. So with these caveats, I have been looking at juvenile crime rates over the past 30 years to see what level of problem we have and provide us with direction on how we should address that problem. So I took another report from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in their statistical briefing book. Says that we want to look at this over time. In 1980, there were just under 6,400 arrests per 100,000 children aged 10 to 17 in the overall population in the United States. By 1990, that number went up to 7,245 arrests of children aged 10 to 17 per 100,000 children aged 10 to 17. However, by 2000, the year 2000, that number of juvenile arrests dropped back down to just under 6,500. And then in 2010, the number of juvenile arrests per 100,000 children aged 10 to 17 in the population had fallen to just under 4,900. And by 2016, that number had fallen to 2,554. 2,554. That's a decline of 61% in juvenile arrest from 1980 to 2016. Wouldn't that suggest to you that whatever we were doing to respond to the juvenile crime problem was working? Wouldn't that then suggest to you that the conversation that should be going on amongst us is we should be doing more of what we've been doing that has been bringing the juvenile crime rate down, and celebrate the fact that we found things that work that are lowering the amount of juvenile crime in our society? Why are we talking every single moment of every day as if we're pants on fire, right? The sky is falling, when in fact we've got columns up holding up the sky, right? We're much better off than we were 30 years ago. If you look at it from the peak of juvenile crime, which was in 1996, there were 8,476 arrests per 100,000 aged 10 to 17-year-old people in the population in 1996. That number fell, as I said, to 2,554 during the 2016 year. That's actually a 70% drop from the peak to where we are today. So the clear reality is that the juvenile crime rate has been going down precipitously over the past 30 years. The records suggest that while we have a problem, it is more localized to specific communities around the country and specific neighborhoods within those communities. So I don't want to give the impression that we don't have a juvenile crime problem. If we have one juvenile arrest, that's a problem, right? So to focus on the problem doesn't mean let's have a blanket initiative that we're going to do in every single community all across the United States if the problem doesn't exist all across the United States. If it exists in Chicago, if it exists in Philadelphia, if it exists on the east side of Buffalo, if it exists on the south side of Syracuse, if it exists in specific areas, then we need to focus our resources on those specific areas. That almost seems intelligent, doesn't it? Okay. I'm just trying to help us, right? Because what happens is we keep being herded into pattern responses to things when the thing that we're being herded to respond to is not really what's going on. There's something very specific, something very localized that's going on, and we need to be focusing on that rather than spending our resources on, expanding prisons, for example, privatizing prisons, making more things a crime than were a crime before, that sort of stuff. That's just dumb. I mean, from my point of view, I realize that's my opinion, okay, so don't blame the station, just blame me. And so when we see these shootings and murders in the city of Buffalo that tend to occur in the same general districts of the city, and often they are perpetrated by young adults versus very adolescent youth. I need to make that distinction as well. When we're talking about adolescent youth, we're talking about people ages 10 to 17 years old. But when you see the people that are actually committing the vast majority of these shootings and murders, they're usually not people that young. They're usually people in that 18 to 29 age range, right? So that suggests that the people who are creating most of the problem that we are dealing with as a city are people who fail, in my view, in the preparatory system that's supposed to get you from being born to get you to a point where you can get into finishing school, get a degree or get a certificate that would allow you to be able to become employed in some area of the economy that you want to work in that will pay you a decent salary and give you a decent quality of life. Does that make sense? So the children who fail to succeed in that development process to get from primary school to elementary school to middle school to high school, the people that fail to get through that process successfully, they're the ones who wind up on the street, sucking up time on the porches and whatnot, hogging the community basketball courts, saying give your community centers over to us, from 6 o'clock until 4 in the morning, and so on to play midnight, something basketball. They should be working. By the time it gets to be 6:30, 7 o'clock, they should be tired from working. They should be taking care of their families, taking care of their homes, taking care of their neighborhoods. That's what should be going on with them. They should not be sitting around here at 26 years old playing basketball at 12 o'clock in the morning. They should be sleeping. Unless they have a third shift job, they should be sleeping. You know what I mean? Getting ready to go to work, right? So we've got to figure out what is happening to so many youth that they fail the development process and don't get into finishing school. They don't turn into somebody with a degree or a certification in a vocational area. And therefore, they wind up going hand-to-hand combat in the street. That's the problem that we have to solve, at least from my point of view. I know we're close to our break, so as soon as I can grab Lee, we'll take our break. But let me just hit you with a quick thought. According to Child Trends Data Bank Indicator, this is actually a report that was done by the Bureau of Justice Statistics. In fact, before I get into that, let me take our first break, and then I'll get into the Bureau's report. So if you all stick with us, hopefully making some kind of sense, look for your calls, 837-1112, 837-1112. We see the side of the break here at Living Right Now.
Do you want to increase your home's value? Do you want to lower your energy bills? Are you in need of affordable financing for your next home improvement project? The CAO Home Improvement Resource Program can help. Just come to their monthly HIRP orientation session every second Wednesday of the month at 564 Dodge Street, Building 400. HIRP staff will help identify the resources you need to get financed, and they'll even help you with completing your application. You won't know what you qualify for until you call them today at 881-6543. That's 881-6543. Learn about all the home improvement programs you may be eligible for and ask about the affordable financing program that can help turn your house into your dream home. Call 881-6543 for more info. It's the Home Improvement Resource Program, restoring value to neighborhoods across Erie County, one house at a time. Brought to you by the Community Action Organization of Erie County.
All right, welcome back to Living Now here at WFO, Power 96.5 FM on your dial. This is L.Nathan Hare, your host. I'm here with Emmanuel Radford, who's doing the live streaming of the program. And I wanted to try to help us with this perspective, because as I said earlier in the program, if you don't accurately identify what your problem is, you tend to focus your resources on something that is not your actual problem, and then you find that you spend all of those resources and your problem has not been resolved. The truth is, we've done really good things in this society over the past 30, 33 years to help us with the juvenile crime problem that we had been having. Our juvenile crime problem from its peak in 1996 has actually dropped 70% to today. You got to be saying, man, that's a good job. We're doing great. Now, of course, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to see one juvenile arrest. But I feel better seeing 30 rather than seeing 100. I hope that makes sense to somebody, right? 30 juvenile crooks as opposed is better than 100 juvenile crooks. That's just the way I look at it. So, after rising for many years, since 2006, the number of young adults, who I think is the core of the problem that we have to solve, ages 18 to 29 in prison, actually fell, by 11%, from 2008, between 2008 and 2009, has fallen down to less than 800,000 people in that age range. But that's not great. I mean, I think that 90% of the countries in the world don't have as many people in prison as we have that are just 18 to 29-year-old adults. We have more 18 to 29-year-old adults in prison than most countries have in prison, period, in their country. So we got a long way to go, okay, on this criminal justice issue. But the implications of these facts are that juvenile crime is actually going down at 6 times the rate that young adult crime is going down. That's a problem. Juvenile crime's gone down 70% during the same time period that adult crime, young adult crime, has only gone down 11%. So we're missing something in the process. So if we can keep youth who stay out of the criminal justice system up to age 18 out of the criminal justice system, when they become legal adults, we can solve many of the societal problems that we now face in these heavily impacted communities. Spending time in prison can have on a young person. High rates of recidivism means that many youth, once they go into the prison system, are going to stay in the prison system for significant portions of their lives. Up to 1/3 of incarcerated youth return to prison or jail within a few years after release. But there are some positive life experiences, including employment, marriage, parenthood, job stability, and high school graduation, that are associated with a successful turnaround in young adulthood. In other words, if you get young people that get caught up in the criminal justice system, if you can turn them into people who have a chance to get a job, get married, become parents, give them job stability, help them to sustain job stability, help them finish high school and have an actual high school diploma, those young people have a tendency to stay out of the criminal justice system even after they first went in. And so we start stripping away the fuel in this crime problem that we have within this country. So we've got to keep young people from getting into the criminal justice system in the first place. That's the work that we have to do with people that are age 10 to 17. That's our first effort. And that effort has been working, right? We've dropped the number of people that have criminal engagement by 70% over the course of the past 32 years. Now we have to make sure that the people who turn 18, we still keep them out of the criminal justice system. So that means we got to do a better job from 10 to 17 in getting people to finish high school on time. We have to do a better job during that time period to keep people from getting pregnant during that time period. We have to do a better job of getting people academically strong enough that they can get into a college or a vocational certification program that will give them a degree or give them a certification that will enable them to be able to get a job. You know, a plumber can make $60 to $80 an hour. You can make almost as much money as a plumber as you can make as an intern as a doctor. That's not bad. You can spend a couple years, getting your plumber's license, and you can make as much money as a first or second year, resident doctor in a hospital. So there are lots of ways for you to post up in the economic system in this country. You just have to make the effort to get there. There's advanced technology training. There's going to be somewhere, I can't remember the exact number, but it's something in the area of 166, maybe 200,000 jobs in the 8 western counties of New York State in advanced manufacturing alone. People that are going to become lathe operators and milling machine operators and borers and grinders and those kinds of metal fabricating, positions, because so many people are going to retire from those jobs over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. Because when you get to be 70 years old, it's probably time for you to let it go and let somebody else have that job, right? And you gotta, move the retirement, thing. So that's going to spring a lot of jobs. Already, it's springing a lot of jobs opening up in our economy in the Western New York area. You just got to get ready to get those jobs. You can't be somebody who can't count and be a lathe operator. You have to be able to count to be a lathe operator. How hard is it to learn how to count? Come on now, dog. I mean, you've been on the planet for 23 years. How long does it take to learn how to count? Learn how to count. Don't whine about the fact that you can't count. Go someplace and learn how to count. Learn how to read. There are people out here who have Down syndrome that are reading Thoreau, that are reading Dickinson, they're writing poetry. You telling me that you got all your brains and you can't learn how to read? Just learn how to read so that you can get a place in this society. Stop saying what you can't do and start doing what you can. If you're the parents or you're the family around people that are in that situation where they're saying that the reason why they can't get a job is because they don't know how to count, they don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, you got to be the ones to get muscular with them and say, I'm willing to support you and see to it that you got food, clothing, and shelter, as long as you're going in a very aggressive way to turn yourself into somebody who can read, write, and count competitively so that you can get a real job. You got to get a job. You can't be out here banging, hand-to-hand combat in the streets. You got to get a real job. So youth who have been incarcerated experience, as we've talked about, diminished income in comparison with their non-incarcerated peers. In addition, they may suffer earnings losses between 10 and 30% for up to 10 years after their release just because they have a criminal record. Economic hardship, in turn, is associated with lower levels of mental well-being, depression, physical health, social attachments, and lower life expectancy. According to one estimate, on a typical day in 2000, approximately 1 in 3, this is just horrible, 1 in 3 black male high school dropouts were in prison or in jail. So clearly, if you don't become a high school dropout, that's not going to happen to you. Let me get this first call real quick and we'll get our discussion going. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Hare.
Hi, Mother Doyle, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. I kind of slept a little late this morning.
Uh-oh.
That's the advantage of being retired.
You can do that.
Oh, yes. I attended the emergency meeting Saturday that was held at the First Centennial Baptist Church on High Street, and there were a lot of people there. It was really packed. It was standing room only. And, people are really hurting from the murders, especially the murders, because the ones that were really referenced were the ones on Grape Street, where you had the 6 shootings in one home.
Right.
I think that really got people upset and really brought people together. So, but I do agree with you on the point that you're making that we have to prepare our young people, and I think you used the ages 10 through 17. I agree with that. As a matter of fact, I spoke at the meeting, and I did emphasize the fact that we have to address the education issue.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of these young people have not really been educated. And so we have to make sure that they learn the things that you're talking about so they don't end up on the street causing havoc in our community. I think that's a serious problem.
Yep.
But I'm not sure, as I was speaking, I'm not sure that what I said was really being taken to heart. Because I think people were so wrapped up in the emotion that they really couldn't maybe see some of the things that I was suggesting. But, that's one of the reasons, Mr. Hare, I worked so hard with the scholarship. And by the way, the scholarship program was very successful Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And the young people, I think they were really surprised because they all got a check for $300.
Wow, that was sweet.
I don't think they expected that much, but my goal is to encourage them. These young people just got out of high school. And the goal is to encourage them to continue the education, because graduating from high school is not the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's the beginning. And to go on and to get as much education as possible. We have to do a better job of that, because like you said, a lot of the people who are doing the shooting, they're not, they're older. I mean, if you look at the ages,
right,
and somewhere along the line, they have missed that education piece. And I think that's a real problem, and I don't think we're addressing that enough. So that's why I said what I said.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to do a better job of that. And I wanted to ask you, because when I look now, we have the Northern Corridor,
right,
which is an excellent opportunity for people who perhaps did miss their education to go there, because I know they do the academics as well as training people for these high-tech jobs, because that's the wave of the future.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at it on the news and they're showing the people there, it's not a whole lot of folks now.
Yep.
So what is the answer? That's what I wanted to ask you. What is it that we can do, and to really make this community understand that this is a part of the problem and is real? So that's what I wanted to see if you had any comments on that. But I just want to congratulate those young people who got the scholarship Saturday, and I want to thank Bishop Michael Badger, because one of the young people was his niece.
Mm-hmm.
And he came, the whole Badger family came. And half of his church, Mr. Hare.
Well, that's the core of it right there.
Yes.
We've got to be willing to be making ourselves available to celebrate our children at every stage of everything they do.
Yeah, I was happy to see them walk in and to celebrate this young lady, and Diana Johnson, because she goes to their church, her family goes to their church, and like you said, we have to surround these young people and encourage them and celebrate their achievement. But anyway, I'll hang up because I'm interested in some of your ideas on how we can. We can't do it overnight, I know, but
right.
Maybe we can begin to address it.
Let's put a process together. Thanks,
Yes,
Mother
I'll
Doyle.
hang up and listen to the rest of the show. Thank you, Mr. Hare.
Thank you. Okay. And see, Mother Doyle is doing a lot of what I feel has to be done. When she used the term surrounding, our children, but my point is that we can't just leave it up to the biological family to surround the children. All of us as adults, as caring adults, all of us collectively have to surround all of the children all of the time, so that if the children think that what's expected of them by the entire community of adults is that you're going to have B's and A's, in elementary and middle school and high school, and you're going to go to college, or you're going to go to a vocational certification program, and you're going to become a engineering aide or whatever they call it, whatever a junior engineer is. You're going to become a phlebotomy aide, you're going to become a dental assistant, you're going to become a manufacturing technologist, etc. Right? If you as a child growing up, if all of the adults that are around you are all like waiting on you to get through this process. What are you doing? How you doing in school? Okay, because I want to see what you're going to be, man. You're going to be this, you're going to be that. If that's what everybody around you is talking to you about, is modeling in front of you that they want for you, their expectation of you, you will do things without even thinking about it you will do things, micro things, to enable those expectations. So I told you in my own life, I had a lot of the craziness everybody talks about in their lives, people in my family that were hustlers, blah, blah, blah. And I felt a certain amount of expectation to become at least a decent hustler, myself, right? Otherwise, how do I get respect, within my family circles and so on? But because I always knew that what was expected of me at the end was that I was going to finish college, I was going to finish graduate school, that I was going to become, some professional something, I made decisions in my life, little decisions, like I didn't have study periods, when I was going to school, that I did all of my homework before I went to the streets. Now, I may have gotten it done by 3:30 because I was good at doing my homework, but I'd get it done, before I went to the street, and so on. I avoided situations where I could wind up in prison. I just chose not to do those things, right? And so because I made these constant, tiny, micro decisions, that enabled me to bypass a lot of the traps that could have sucked me into the criminal justice system. And that's what I mean. We have to put that ideation in the minds of our children. We have a caller hanging on. Let me grab that call real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Hare. How you doing today?
Hey, Sam. How you feeling, man?
Yes, sir. You're making a lot of sense this morning. The comment that I wanted to make is that, some time ago, you shared that the Buffalo Public School System has a bias for prepared parents, people who are prepared to be able to take advantage of. And that really stuck with me, just in terms of, how systems work best with people who understand them and who are prepared to deal with them. And they do, they struggle with people who don't prepare. I've looked at it in a lot of different ways since you said it to me. Even it resonates when you have first generation college students. Because they're not prepared, or because they don't know as much as second or third generation college students, that they struggle much more and they have a hard time persisting. And it made me ask this question, and even work with my own children about this question: what are you prepared for? Because to a certain degree, your life to a certain, becomes what you are prepared for. So if you're not prepared for anything, you kind of get caught up in the cross currents of life, and you end up in the situations that you're talking about today. And then the last point you made about if you struggle with reading or writing or math, or if you're not prepared to interact with society in a way to get a good result, you're going to have to go on a track for those people who are not prepared for that. So to a certain extent, we get what we prepared for. And
that's a good point.
That goes as a community too. If as a community we don't, prepare, for our children's future, we don't prepare for our community's future, we don't actually have a plan that we are executing to make it better every day, to achieve in a better place, we are constantly reacting to these, situations that are going on around us reactively, as opposed to having a proactive strategy that ensures the benefit of all of our children.
And you can evidence that, Sam, by looking at the communities that apparently do have a high percentage of prepared adults that govern those communities. When they start talking about the parks in their communities, when they start talking about the streets and the roads in their communities, they talk about the schools in their communities, you see a high level of investment, not money, but personal investment. They're talking to their council people in their districts. They're talking to their state legislators, their assembly people. They're collectively working with each other in groups to put together ideation about what they want to see happen in this part of their community and that part of their community, because they're prepared to wage a struggle towards a vision that they have in their own minds for what they want to see occur. But
and to your point, they're preparing in advance.
Right.
So if you prepare your child for college, you make certain decisions in elementary school and middle school and high school because you're preparing them for that. If you're preparing your child for a future in a particular career, you're preparing them for that. But you can't not do anything. You can't just be raising your child every day, providing them food, clothing, and shelter, and not preparing them for toward a specific vision, and then get surprised when they get pulled into the cross currents of people who do have a vision for them, and consequently do things that are not, in their interest, because part of your preparation was to not give them a clear goal to work on, a clear direction to work in.
You know, Rob Gidney used to always say, if you don't prepare to plan, then what's the word he said?
If you fail to plan, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
You plan to fail, right? And that is just, you know, so absolutely apropos in terms of what's going on in our community right now. Sam, they got me stuck on the hard break here. I got to do that.
Okay.
I got to grab another call.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
All right,
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. So if you all stick with us, we will take that call first. All right. Before I take that call, let me grab this call. Before I do the commercial break, let me grab this call real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Nathan, I just wanted to talk about how the schools are preparing our children very quickly. I had an opportunity to listen to what happened in Puerto Rico and no electricity and how the ATM machines were not available and electronic banking was non-existent. So I took that to the test to one of our local businesses where they had a young lady, and I had a check. And the name of the business was on the check and the signature was on the check, but I asked her to fill out the rest of the check, the amount, and write in how much the amount was. She couldn't do it. She just couldn't do it. Our children are not prepared, and that's all I'm going to say to you, my friend. God bless. Have a nice week.
Thanks, Bob. Let's take our second break, and then we'll get back into our subject. You all stick with us. We will sit us out of the break here at Living Now, Living Right Now.
Do you want to increase your home's value? Do you want to lower your energy bills? Are you in need of affordable financing for your next home improvement project? The CAO Home Improvement Resource Program can help. Just come to their monthly HIRP orientation session every second Wednesday of the month at 564 Dodge Street, Building 400. HIRP staff will help identify the resources you need to get financed, and they'll even help you with completing your application. You won't know what you qualify for until you call them today at 881-6543. That's 881-6543. Learn about all the home improvement programs you may be eligible for and ask about the affordable financing program that can help turn your house into your dream home. Call 881-6543 for more info. It's the Home Improvement Resource Program, restoring value to neighborhoods across Erie County, one house at a time. Brought to you by the Community Action Organization of Erie County.
All right, welcome back to Living Now here at WFO Power 96.5 FM on your dial. This is L.Nathan Hare, your host. I'm here with Emmanuel Radford, who's doing the live streaming of the program. If you want to participate, you can use your handheld device, your computer. Just type in on your internet browser Facebook, and then type in Living Now. Program will come up, and you can type in your questions, your concerns, or your observations, and we'll respond to them on the air. So in terms of just picking up on some of the thoughts that Sam raised and Mother Doyle raised, we have to look at what seems to be the mixture of factors that cause these juvenile and near juvenile crime rates to be so high in the particular communities where we see these high crime rates existing. And then we have to figure out how do we tackle the problems that seem to be surrounding the incidence of high crime and juveniles in those particular areas. So I'm not going to spend, I don't even know what's a place called Forbes, Iowa. I'm just making this up. I'm not going to spend my time trying to chase a problem in Forbes, Iowa that doesn't exist. I want to spend my time chasing a problem in the Grape Street area of the city of Buffalo where the problem does exist, if that makes sense. The first thing that we have to do is to increase the positive experiences that youth ages 10 to 17 have as a routine part of their lives, because you're not going to be successful with the 18 to 29-year-old population unless you grow better 18, 19-year-olds when they're 10 to 17. If I turned you into a positive person at age 17, you're still going to be a positive oriented person at age 18. So that's where we have to begin our struggle. If we can provide structured, generally supervised activity outlets with the capacity to absorb all of our age 10 to 17 youth, they will have a much better chance of avoiding street gangs and negative street culture. They will spend the vast majority of their time either in school, at a community center, or at some church or faith-based organization's community room or other facility, participating in drill teams, in talent programs, in chess clubs, in basketball, baseball, other organized sports, recreation yard sports, extracurricular activities, academic enrichment, homework help, and so on. They will grow up expecting to live within this kind of structure and will be out of the way of the gangs and other crime-oriented groups. I was just kind of doing the numbers with Emmanuel a little bit early before we got on the air. And just to give you a scale of this, if you assume that the kids that are aged birth to 9 are so young that you don't have to have structured after-school programs for them because they're going to be close to their parents. Their parents basically are their after-school program. The kids who are aged 10 to 17 are the ones that are growing in their sense of independence. You know, they get further away from the house. They're the ones who become available to become fuel for whatever kind of poor conduct, you know, may exist, you know, within a community. How do you address that? Well, you need to have these kids in some kind of structure where whether they're either specifically under supervision or they're in general supervision. So, for example, when in my life, we went to the Lanigan's field house in the Perry Projects. We didn't necessarily have Jim Horn or Roman Williams or somebody specifically looking at me, you know, individually, but they were just running the general field house and the baseball diamond and all that stuff that was around the field house. But because they were around, it kept a certain amount of order in the area. You didn't have gangs popping up trying to seize control, you know, of the playground because you had these adults that were there, you know, all of the time. So having your kids in what I call general supervision or in close supervision, where they're, you know, may have been learning how to wrestle, learning how to box, in a chess club, doing some enrichment activity, and so on. All of that keeps your children under the general governance of caring adults who are morally, you know, well moral persons that have generally a high degree of integrity, a high degree of responsibility. That's what they model out, you know, to you, a high level of expectation for what they want to see happen for you in your life. That's who you're around all the time. So how do we create those opportunities for all of the kids? Well, you've got roughly 250 churches in the city of Buffalo. Let's suppose that every church on average can take responsibility for 40 kids a night in their church's community room, where they might have, you know, chess clubs going, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever, you know, academic enrichment, talent show, you know, they got all kinds of stuff. You know, kids and the church leaders will come up with their own programs, but let's suppose you can take up 40 kids every night across 250 churches. That's 10,000 spots right there that you've got for after-school programs for kids. Let's suppose that we take the city's community centers. I think there are 13 community centers in the city of Buffalo. Let's suppose that they can take 100 kids per night. That's 1,300 kids. So now you're up at over 11,000 kids that you've taken care of. Then we have 56 school buildings in the city of Buffalo, 56. Each one of them has at least what the community centers have, plus lots of other assets. But let's just make it simple. Let's say that each school can take up an average of 100 kids per night. That's 5,600 kids. So we've added up over 16,000 after-school potential, almost 17,000 after-school spots for children. Now, ages 10 to 17 is only about 2,500 kids in the city of Buffalo, ages 10 to 17 at each age level. So you've got 8 of those age levels, that's 12,000 kids. So you got 12,000 kids and easily 17,000 spots for those kids to be able to be served in after-school programs. What it means is we have to get the parents to not only talk about how terrible these juvenile crimes and young adult crimes are, but they also have to be making a demand on the church leaders. You have to make your spaces available. Who's going to populate the governance of those after-school programs at those churches? The churches have to do that. They've got the congregations. They've got to go to their congregations and say, I need so-and-so, you know, for you to man this program in this school. I was with Bishop Troy Bronner when he was with Calvary Baptist Church. He had a rites of passage program there. The rites of passage program was populated by us as the congregation members. We didn't hire somebody else. We didn't pay anybody. We just, as a part of the congregation, as a part of our role in the congregation, people volunteered to get that stuff done. because we were in a Christian fellowship, and that was part of the fellowship, is getting that sort of stuff done. So that's what I'm saying, that the parents have to make these kinds of demands on the church leaders. Parents also have to make the same kind of demand on the schools. Schools are public schools. These are public school buildings. They're paid for with public money. In case you missed it, you are the public. I know sometimes that gets lost. You think that maybe the public is, the taxpayers or somebody else. No, it's not true. You're the taxpayer. You're the public. The schools are actually your schools. They belong to you. They work for you. They should be working in what is in your interest. So you have to go to the schools. You have to go to the Board of Education. You have to go to the superintendent. You have to go to your assembly person. You have to go to your state senator. And you have to say to them, you have to make it possible by this September to have these buildings open up so that they can be used. If they can't afford to do it with the population of employees in the school district, then you got to open these facilities up and make whatever adjustments you got to make with your union contracts so that volunteers can come in and they can operate these programs in these schools. But we can't allow a situation to occur where there is tremendous capacity to be able to meet the needs of these elementary school children, and we're not using the capacity because we got some union agreements, or we got some protocol agreements, or we got some other, kind of stuff going on. If the purpose of the public schools is to serve the public, then we need to make sure that the public schools are being used in a way that are serving the public. That's what I'm asking for Neil, for Kenny, for all of the rest of the people, the peacekeepers, Stop the Violence, all of these different organizations. Those are the kind of demands that I'm thinking that they have to make on the system so that we make this capacity. We should have it so that it's abnormal, extraordinarily abnormal for a child after school to not be in some supervised structure, whether general supervision or specifically supervised structure. Every child should be in that kind of a structure. If we do that, you're going to see a much higher percentage of kids getting better grades in school, much higher percentage of kids who are actually finishing high school on time. We should have a 99.99% graduation rate, and the only person who didn't graduate should be somebody who died before the year was over. Should be nobody who doesn't graduate from high school who's still alive. Nobody should not graduate from high school when it's their time. We should get that done. Every one of the kids who graduates from high school should go into finishing school. They should go into a degree conferring program or in a certificate conferring program. Every single one of them. We can't miss any of them. All of them have to work. All of them have to become adults. All of them have to be able to make a contribution to be able to take care of their own food, clothing, and shelter, become a contributing member of the community. This is not optional, right? We don't have some people that, oh, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you forever. That's not happening, okay? That's not the way the job, that's not how it works, okay? So if you know what you have to win with everybody, build your entire model around winning with everybody, not winning with some people, winning with all people. If there's anybody you're not winning with, you have to make interventions right then and there. You can't wait until 2 years after the AP test, occur. You got to do it right then and there. Everybody has to succeed. In fact, there's a legislation for that. It's called the Every Student Succeeds Act. Everybody has to succeed, not some people. Everybody has to succeed. And so if we do that, then we'll have very few 18-year-olds who are unprepared to go into adulthood. But we still have to work, for that population as well. So I indicated that. So collectively, there'll be an increase in the overall income coming into our community because everybody who doesn't become a criminal and gets incarcerated is working. And if you're working, you're making $20,000, $25,000 a year, as opposed to costing us $40,000 to $60,000 a year to incarcerate you. That just makes so much sense. I don't even know how to make that make better sense than that. This will reduce the number of young adults getting involved in the criminal justice system, collectively increase the overall income coming into our communities. As so many more people become gainfully employed, it will reduce the constant expenditure of so much money on incarceration. It will lead to a much higher percentage of stable, successful marriages and relationships. It will become the reliable platform upon which to build new communities with a high sense of self-worth, dignity, and ability to dictate their own future. Our after-school strategy that we referred to earlier, after-school programs are a powerful antidote to youth crime. They provide a safe haven that keeps kids away from violence. They provide an alternative to gangs and street life, allowing kids to develop new skills and interact positively with others. They offer youth hope and opportunities, offsetting the sense of nihilism that can cause youth to turn to crime. Nihilism is a sense of hopelessness. They contribute to economic opportunity by providing academic support and job skills. And compared to non-participants with similar profiles, program youth who are raised in this kind of programming were significantly less likely to be suspended from school. Participants with histories of involvement in the juvenile justice system are significantly less, excuse me, I said that wrong. Without histories of involvement in the juvenile justice system were less likely to recidivate and participate without such, and participants without such involvement were less likely to commit a first offense. Crime and delinquency related behavior. Do we have a caller hanging on? Let me get that call. Hold on one second. Crime and delinquency related behavior among participants declined. Vandalism and stealing dropped by 2/3. In Rochester, Mayor Duffy, 100% of our street level drug dealers are high school dropouts.